US President Joe Biden has a habit of using his human rights propaganda to intimidate US allies and get them to follow his line on major international issues. Until he was doing it with monarchies like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, it still seemed manageable. But this time, he tried to do it with India, the world's largest democracy, and got exposed terribly. Hi and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm your host Vedika. Let's begin. Old habits die hard, and it seems that Biden has an old habit of using human rights propaganda in an attempt to browbeat US allies. This time the US tried to do it with India. During a 2+2 foreign and defense ministers meeting with India, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken talked about monitoring some recent concerning developments in India, including a rise in human rights abuses by some government, police, and prison officials. However, this turned out to be a huge mistake as India too raised its concerns about human rights abuses in the US. This is the first time that Biden's human rights propaganda has been called out by a global leader, and that too by the top diplomat of the world's largest democracy. This is a huge setback for the Biden administration because if one takes even a cursory look, there are a number of human rights issues that get exposed from within the US. The attempt to school the world's largest democracy about human rights was a big mistake. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar gave a terse official reaction to Blinken's remarks. He said, "I would tell you that we also take our views on other people's human rights situation, including that of the United States. So, we take up human rights issues when they arise in the country, especially when they pertain to our community. And in fact, we had a case yesterday. That's really where we stand on that." What Dr. S. Jaishankar said reveals that there are certainly some issues with the Biden administration, but he only made a reference. Let's dive in to see what is going wrong under the Biden administration. If you want to notice how the Biden administration is trampling upon human rights, you need to look further than the critical race theory. On his first day in office, President Biden rescinded the Trump administration's executive order prohibiting critical race theory training for federal agencies and federal contractors. Needless to mention, the critical race theory fuels hate and prejudice. It reprimands and views as condemnable all white people. Literally, every white American is viewed as a perpetrator of racial crimes, and black people are universally seen as victims. American students are being forcibly indoctrinated with this theory, and American parents have been protesting against CRT. They see the theory as an assault on their dignity and social standing. Yet, the Biden administration seems determined to push CRT across the United States. And then it's not just about the agenda that the Biden administration is pushing. Rather, the problem is that Biden is trying to correct historical crimes by committing new racial crimes. This is why the Biden administration has been pushing laws that either punish white Americans or openly discriminate against them. Take, for instance, the Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act. A relief clause in Biden's COVID-19 relief bill was introduced last year. It awarded $5 billion to minority farmers but did not provide the same assistance to white farmers. It of course doesn't make any sense and actually qualifies as state discrimination. Then the Biden administration's penal laws border on racial prejudice. Take, for example, the latest anti-lynching law that punishes only white Americans for the crime of lynching. And the race is just one dimension. The Biden's campaign on issues like gender and illegal immigrants has been just as absurd. Biden administration officials would therefore now think twice before invoking the human rights agenda in its diplomacy after being exposed by India.